session. And I would like to let you know I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, just let me know. And I would like to welcome the presenter for this session. Her name is Angelina Meadows. So welcome, Miss Angelina.
Hello, everyone. And if you could just answer the question in the chat, that would be great. Where do you live and teach? And where do you get all of your information? Oh my goodness. And Rain lives, teaches in Western High School and gets all of their information from Western High School in Vegas. That's fantastic. So everybody else, if you could just take a few seconds as we're chatting and talking here. If you use the QR code in the bottom, I think it's left-hand corner on your screen, that will take you directly to the OER Project website. If you do not have an OER Project account, it will ask you to register for one, but that will allow you to poke around. You can use your phone, or if you are on an iPad, you can use the camera app, or, you know, if you have a fancy laptop, you can look at or hover your laptop camera over that, and that will help you get in. So I'm Angelina Meadows. I'm the OER Project Education Partner Manager. So I am coming to you live from Michigan, where unfortunately it is already dark outside here. So I am incredibly jealous that you guys just finished lunch in Nevada, and I wish that I was there with the beautiful sunshine instead of here with, I think, 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground. But this is fantastic. And so I'm lucky that you guys all, I use a lot of AP resources modified for regular classes. I'm just reading your messages coming in, and TikTok, news on TV. A lot of people are getting their info from TikTok lately, and that's very interesting to me. Permanent standards, VA and New York. Well, welcome everyone to this session. So we're going to talk about this little bit of an information session about the World History Project, as well as talking about the narratives that the World History Project creates. So as I said, I'm Angelina. I'm the Senior Education Partner Manager. I work closely with Janie Melroney there in Nevada. So any of the OER Project PB, if any of you have been a part of that this year, I have helped to organize that with Janie to bring that to you, to, you know, focus on skills and skills development in the classrooms for social studies teachers, because we all know how important that is. I was a teacher myself in the classroom for a number of different years. I think it was 15 all told. I was an instructional coach. I ended my career in the classroom as an elementary principal, and recently have transitioned to the OER Project team full time. I did teach both the Big History Project course and World History Project. I am a passionate world history teacher. I love teaching world history. And world history is really just something that brings joy to my soul. So I'm glad I'm here today to speak with all of you about it. If you have questions at any point throughout this session, please come off mute, jump in, throw them at me. Happy to chat with you about any questions that you have, and we can talk through them. So today, really, I want to just share with you a little bit about the philosophy, the history of OER Project. I want to help you examine some of the resources and really talk about how do we create those narratives in this class, and talk about what do assessments look like, what is the course overview, and how do we help create these narratives for students. Because I think once we create those narratives and once we use frames to create the narratives, that's when world history becomes such an enriching and wonderful experience for students. And it really is a course that helps bring today's world to life for them and helps them see all of the value in what the everyday experience is for them today. So what is the OER project in general? Let's start with that. We are a free online textbook. That is the easiest way to say it. We like to call ourselves a modern day textbook, but we are not a freemium. It's not free for a little bit of time. It's free forever. And we offer a comprehensive curricula. So that means that you could log on day one and you will have activities, videos, everything that you could possibly need from day one through day 187. And so this is what makes us different. Other OER, open educational resource warehouses or providers like SHEG or like Teachers Pay Teachers or anything like that, they sometimes have, just individual one-day lessons. We offer a comprehensive curricula. We also treat teachers as professionals, and in doing so, we offer free PD. So this means that we're constantly offering professional learning through our site, through different state organizations, through working with state departments of education. We offer free conferences. All of this is because we believe that teachers are the ultimate levers through which education happens. And we want them to feel as if they are the professionals, which they truly are. Every single person on our OER project team has been a teacher, which is different than a lot of other educational organizations. We've all taught in the classroom. And we think that that's really important to have done that. And we think that historical practices must be connected to inquiry and skills in order to drive good content. You cannot have only content creation. If you don't marry that with skills and inquiry, then you're losing the battle. Content is not the only thing that kids need to learn. So our kind of suite of courses that we offer started with Big History about 10 or 11 years ago. And then we went on to World History, which we thought was going to be one course, and then realized very quickly that different states have various periodizations of that World History course. So it ended up being 3 completely different courses. One that is World History Origins. So that begins pre-hunters and gatherers. One that is a 1200 course that begins roughly, pre-Columbian Exchange. And then one that is 1750 that begins roughly around industrialization. In the summer, we were recently approved by the College Board as the only open educational resource College Board comprehensive curricula free textbook. So we have a College Board ID. We are a College Board approved text. So this was a huge piece for us because one of our, the parts of our mission are to really help provide books to kids or to serve students that would otherwise not be able to be served with textbooks that are super high cost. We know that textbooks are sometimes a deterrent, that kids are learning out of textbooks that are, at least I know in my school, my kids had textbooks where the last thing in history was the Berlin Wall, when the Berlin Wall fell. And so we don't want kids to have to learn out of things like that. The nice thing about having an online textbook that is constantly updated is the fact that as history changes, as we find out new information, as we are able to grow and the canon of history adapts, we can constantly update, we can constantly add and change and grow. And that is fantastic for kids. And then most recently, we also added a 3-week climate project course. This is a civic advocacy course. And so this is meant to be a civic participation piece. So looking at climate, not from a scientific lens, but saying, what can students do to support the climate project, to support the climate issue? And how does that work from, say, a socioeconomic lens or from a civic mindedness stance? What are we doing from a federal legislation piece? What are we doing from a legal standpoint? What are we doing from a local economic standpoint or a school board standpoint? So students are investigating those issues. So those are the most current courses. Oh, that's a great question. So Naomi, I'm hoping I'm saying your name right. So Naomi, your question is a great question. And we have a person on my team that is in charge of doing CEUs and looking at CEU credits. Her name is Ebony McKeever. And we are actually updating our website to talk about all the states and what counts for CEU credits. So if you email, and I'll put it right here, that email, she will be able to answer that for you because she has all of that information. I don't know off the top of my head, but she definitely will. And so I think December-ish, our website will be updated so that you can get that information on your own. We've been working on the development of that because in all of these PD sessions, I normally lead them and I don't have that information at the ready and I need to. But she does it because that is her gift. So help@oerproject.com is where you go. So some common threads between the project courses. We use the C3 framework to develop all our courses to start. We use a surround sound approach. So we always match our PD and our courses. So any of the skills that we're teaching in our PD are the skills that you would need in the courses, that you would need to teach your students in the courses. So we want to make sure that you understand the theory, the research, and the way to teach the skills. So then you are accomplished at doing that for your students. And then we talk about interventions, like what are some modifications? What are some scaffolds? What are some different ways that you could do that? So then you can feel successful going into your class that if you have a kiddo that you're like, Angelina is not picking up on that. You already have 5, 6, 7, tips or tricks in your bag that you can pull out from the first day that you start teaching those materials. And then additionally, we look at what are the scaffolds that we can already build in. So all of our reading materials are Lexile leveled. We want to make sure that that is the case. The only class that doesn't have Lexile leveled readings is AP because it's the AP World History course. We have skill progression placemats because you should see how do these skills progress over time. Additionally, we want to show you that we are not only progressing with the skill in terms of the challenge, but we are progressing with the skill in terms of how much of a scaffold we're providing and then taking the scaffold away. Because if we keep on providing the scaffold for the students, we've done nothing but cage them in. So we need to also walk that scaffold back and remove that caging so that they can do it on their own. So we want to show you all of that too. So all of those things are part and parcel of the courses that we have. So what's the World History Project? Let's get to the narrative. Let's get to the chat about it. And so here we are. The World History Project, it's comprehensive and it talks about these different connecting of the dots, these different narratives, these different frames of history. And the frames are the most important pieces. So I think we've all taught world history courses, at least I can speak for myself. When I was first teaching world history, I was just given my class schedule and given a book. And so, as a new teacher in world history being so massive, start at the beginning of the book and I'm going to march my kids all the way through because as a new teacher, that's what I thought you did. They've got to know from this day all the way on through. Because also in Michigan, that's how my standards were set up, this period all the way on through to this period. And so the only thing I know that my students understood by the end of the year was that world history was awfully boring. That one date followed another date, followed some people, followed some events, followed some stuff, and things happened. And I did not do a great job for them bringing that story together, weaving a tapestry, weaving a narrative, weaving anything together, showing them that this one thing happened at this particular time and then something happened later on and those two events were connected. I didn't do that for them. And as I grew in my teaching, I realized, well, that's why world history is so exciting. That's why it's so important. Not only that something that happened here in this one place in the world has such an impact in another place in the world. Think about, the war in Ukraine causing food shortages in Brazil. That is interesting and also extremely worrisome for so many different reasons, but that's also what we need to do for our students. We need to paint those pictures. We need to show those connections. We need to weave those stories together. And so that's why these narratives and frames become so important. And that's what this course does. And so I'm going to do my best at this point to show you a video. And I didn't come in quick enough to make this work. So you're going to have to bear with me for a second. Okay, let me stop share here. And share sound. And I'm going to share here. And here we go.
A good map, on paper or on your phone, is critical when traveling in unfamiliar territory. Maps help you navigate a trip, locating your place on the Earth, showing you where you are, where you've been, and where you're heading. And good maps provide just enough detail, and no more, to get you where you're going. But what if you're traveling through time? What tool can help locate you in time, help you to see where you are, where you've been, and where you're going? Are there tools we could use, like maps, that might help you as you start your journey through the familiar and unfamiliar territories of world history? In this course, we think big story frames, or simply frames, will help as you travel through history, mapping the trip our species has taken over hundreds of thousands of years. Like maps, the frames highlight important milestones or turning points on a trip. But unlike maps, these historical milestones or turning points are snapshots in time, showing changes in how our ancestors lived, worked, organized themselves, and connected to others. The frames in this course provide a way to get meaningful pictures or answers out of a huge amount of information. A world history course cannot possibly tell you everything that happened to everyone for the entire history of the world. But sometimes it seems like your teacher and your class materials are trying to do just that. Lots of places, lots of dates, lots of people, lots of events, and lots of ideas will come your way. And there's a risk that you'll get lost in the details, losing your place in time. So it seems like history is just one thing after another after another. You need a way to connect what you're learning, to find answers to questions or ways to understand what it all means. The frames should help you to do this kind of work. Now, what kind of tool is a frame? By viewing the past through a frame, it should help you make sense of the wild diversity of history. It should help you use what you learn about the past to understand our present and to anticipate the future. The three frames we use in this course are communities, production and distribution, and networks. The communities frame looks at how we've structured the societies around us, including the state and religion. The production and distribution frame explores how we have made and moved the stuff we use every day. Finally, the networks frame looks at how humans have been connected to and interact with one another. Now, these are only three of the many possible ways you could frame the past and the present, but we think using these three will help you make sense of the details you'll encounter. They will offer insight into important questions about how the events of the past have led us to the lives we live today. This, in turn, should help you to think about and prepare for the future. How might the frames do this? For example, in looking at how humans changed the communities in which they lived, the communities frame might help you to understand the promise and limitations of democracy, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. In seeing all the changes we made in the ways we produced and distributed goods and services, the production and distribution frame might help you to think about how work has been changing and what jobs might be available in the future. And using the networks frame might help you to think carefully about the ways new forms of communication, from spoken words to letters to telephones to the internet, historically changed society, and to prepare you for the changes to come. Each frame enables us to connect particular events and trends in the past to those that came before and will come after. However, depending on which frame we use, we can get different but complementary answers. For example, the transition to farming in the distant past and the Cold War in the recent past assume very different meaning if we consider them as changes in community identities or economic systems of production and distribution or the networks of people and ideas. Of course, these elements of human life all overlap, and so the frames also all overlap. But that's okay. The past is messy and complicated, and so are the tools we must use to study it. Frankly, that's why using multiple frames is so useful. Each frame reveals important information that other frames may not. After all, you need different maps to help you see different territories, right? One map may be great for one purpose, but not so good for another. So it is with the frames. The important thing to remember about frames is that they let you connect events and people and trends across multiple eras. They create big stories over grand sweeps of time, all the way to the present. Now, even though it might appear that we're studying each era separately, it's very important to help you see bigger patterns of change, patterns sweeping through all the eras, all the way to the present. For example, consider, as we do in the communities frame, that some humans began living in cities thousands of years ago, but it was only in 2007, just over a decade ago, when more than half of all humans were living in cities for the first time. Clearly, the history of cities isn't confined to one era, nor is any other history. Frames, then, are useful tools for understanding big changes in human history. However, because they focus on big changes, they are not perfect tools. They leave out more than they include. Indeed, frames look at events, trends, and long histories through particular filters. None of them tells the whole story. It's really impossible to tell the whole of human history through any single story. Even as we use the frames, we will evaluate and modify them. We will test their claims by asking critical questions about how well they guide us in thinking about events of the past and the present. By both using and evaluating the frames, we hope to improve our skills in analyzing the stories we get from the past. This includes the frames that others give us. We'll test their claims using evidence and logic, considering the impact of using one frame over another. So there you have it. Frames allow you to construct histories that are usable for interpreting the past. orienting yourself to the present and preparing for the future. They enable you to study a complex event from a particular perspective. They allow you to generate big questions and to test them using evidence. They help you to perceive patterns that cross different periods. They can be modified through your own experience. This is why we have designed this course for you to use frames, test frames, and eventually construct your own frames for understanding and using world history.
So do we have any questions after that Bob Bain video? Bob Bain is my favorite, not only because he lives in Michigan here. All right, I just want to make sure. So frames become this important tool for us because this is really our centralizing figure through these courses. This is what we keep going back to with kids. This is what we keep talking about. So when we get to a new event or when we interact with a new person, we're able to say, you know, what impact did this person have on production and distribution or this event? Or, you know, what network did this person belong to? And this is what drives those good, fruitful conversations and discussions. And this is what you can create essays around in your class. You know, think about how, you know, networks of exchange changed from this era to this era in the course of world history. You know, a lot of the lift is relinquished from you then from, you know, thinking of all of this when you can set your course up with these frames, because now the content is just fodder to talk about these frames. And now you can insert any content through the lens, or you can look at any content through the lens of these frames. And that for me becomes really, really powerful for kids, because now I'm actually weaving that tapestry. And then when I lay on top of that skills, oh my goodness, now you can't be stopped. So again, just looking quickly at that periodization, you know, you're going to see the different courses, and I'm not sure what's happening with my font here. Hopefully it looks nice on your end. I think it's because I have it open in Dropbox and not downloaded. Sorry about that. So let's look at the course assets. So just some of those different items. You just saw a video from Bob Bain. Within our courses, you're going to see various different historians. So when we talk about an online textbook, we're talking about the fact that we place the teacher as the facilitator of the learning in the course. So not only are you the expert in terms of that facilitation role, but we expect teachers to be a lead learner, which means you're going to learn from other historians. So Bob Bain's a historian that will make a visit to your classroom. Bennett Sherry, Trevor Getz, Bridget O'Connor. All of these are folks that are featured historians that have worked on the World History Project, that are visitors inside your kids' classroom, that they come and talk as if they are, well, they are, but as the experts. And then you help to fact check them. You teach kids sourcing and say, do we trust this person? Why do we trust them? Let's look them up. Let's see, are they credible? Why do we think they're credible? What about them makes them credible? And you treat them as a source, much like you should do if you also utilize a textbook. And that teaches students, just like I asked you, where do you get your news at the beginning? You are a critical consumer of content. It teaches kids to be critical consumers of content, just like John Green. Why should we trust John Green? We want to teach students to be cognizant of where are they getting their information from, and teaching them those skills in your classroom is where they're going to get that knowledge. And so having them learn those pieces becomes so important. And you being the facilitator of that and making that okay is very, very cool. Saying, I don't know if we should trust them. I don't know Bob Bain from anybody. Now, me personally, I do know Bob Bain. His wife taught in my district. He's a very lovely gentleman. But I have a very different relationship with him. So did my students, because he was always around. And many of my students had Mrs. Bain as their classroom teacher. So they felt, oh, I know Mr. Bain. And I said, but do you know Mr. Bain, the historian? Do you know if he knows this stuff? Did you go to U of M? And they're like, oh no. So even being that critical consumer, that makes a difference. And we have to talk to them about that. And so having them look at those articles, do the sourcing, allowing them to change the Lexile level, because some kids, they can read fiction all day, but nonfiction is more challenging. And having them be able to do that is a nice value add. Looking at the videos, reading the transcripts, and then obviously doing great high quality activities is wonderful. But the key here is not to, I think the key here when we're talking about looking at any type of curriculum is not to say, hey, come Monday, I'm going to undo everything I've ever done before. It's to pick one or two things and just give them a try. Any person that does anything with curriculum that comes in and says, well, now as of Monday, you have to do all of this because I've come in and I've taught you this new thing and here you should do it all. They be leery of that. You are a professional. You've done things in the classroom that you know work with your students, that they've shown that help them demonstrate proficiency on a standard. Keep those things. Try one or two things, and then the next year try one or two more, and then the next year try one or two more, and keep adding, because that's what we do naturally. We make small tweaks, we make small enhancements, we make small adjustments, and we keep moving forward because we want to do better. And once we know better, we do better. And that's how things work. The thing that I love about this course in particular, and the content writers, I think that they are wonderful, is this right here. And it's called the Practice Progressions Placemat. So I heard in my last session that many of you in the state of Nevada have to do a student learning goal or student learning objective or student learning something for your evaluation. And in social studies, and I remember this in Michigan when I was doing them, it's so challenging because we don't have a lot of state standardized testing that is only for us at a lot of our levels. And they schlep us in with ELA and they say, well, just use the ELA testing. We're like, well, that's cute, but we have skills that are specific to our discipline. We do. We are valuable. We have things that we teach and it matters. And so I love the practice progression placemat. Now, I also appreciate endlessly the people that say, well, I'll do every single skill on the practice progression placemat. Well, all the luck in the world to you. I will not be that person. I will choose one or two strands. And here is what I will choose. I will choose a strand that my students are already very, very good at. Something that they are already knocking out of the park. And why I will choose that is because if I know that they are already good at it, I want to make sure that the things that we are doing in the class it's a value add. I want to make sure that it is going to be something that continues to help them advance and grow their skills. And if they're already good at it, I want to make sure it's engaging them. Because if it's something that they're good at, is it still upping their level of engagement? So if they're already good at comparison, if they're already good at causation, if they're already good at sourcing, whatever the skill is, choose that one. Because if those activities are going to increase their engagement, great, then let's do that. And then I'll choose an area where they need some support and some help. And then it's a simple pre-post. So what these practice progression placemats do is they break the course up by unit, as you can see, and they hyperlink the activities that specifically align to that particular skill development area. And so you can go on the website, click right on that activity and say, okay, during my nationalism unit, I'm going to do that activity. That's going to be my pre-assessment. And then I'm going to do the next one, right on down until I get to unit 10 or 9. That's going to be my post. And now I've got my student learning goal or student learning objective. I've gotten it approved by my administrator, whatever it happens to be. And now I have definitive proof that I've taught this skill to my students, and I've got enough evidence that shows my students are proficient at it now. And B, I have really focused on this skill throughout the course of second semester as we come back from the holiday. And so for me, this practice progression placemat was a great place as I was looking to enhance my world history class, as I was teaching and this course was coming out, to say, I'm going to dip my little toe in. This is going to be a place where I start dipping my toe to try to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? I was already teaching the full big history course to seniors as an elective in a semester, but this was new for me. And I needed, even though I was in the OER project, I was like in the group, I wanted to still be that conscious, critical consumer of content. And so I needed to do my due diligence. This was the way to do it. Questions about that, and you can find this online. Again, practice progression placemat. This focuses on the skills. Finally, but looking at standards alignment. So standards alignment is really important. We know that we're aligned to Nevada standards, but if any of your administrators look, you can go to this teacher resources page. We have a specific link. Click on the state of Nevada. We've got all of our standards alignment documents. You can print them right out for all of our courses. We've done the work of aligning our courses to your standards, but if your administrator would like to see that, you can definitely print that out or send them that link. We know we work with your Department of Education very closely to make sure that we are. Because it's important to us to make sure that we're aligned to as many states as possible when we are creating courses. And we work pretty closely with, different states as we're creating our courses, just to see what are your teachers doing? What are they interested in? And what are special things that you guys do so that we can learn from the different states? Because we have a lot to learn as well. So it's definitely a two-way street to make sure that we are focusing on the things that you guys need, as well as, learning from what we're hearing from other state leads as well. So finally, let's talk about reading, writing, and assessment. So first of all, we have a very specific reading approach in OER project. It's called 3 close reads. And you can take PD on 3 close reads. We have reading skills clinics. We're going to kick another set off in January once we come back from the holidays. We have one specifically for the state of Nevada. I think it's like in the teens in January. And this is not a patented reading Nevada, or this is not a patented approach to reading. This is just the best practice in reading. The one thing that I will say, and we say this in all of our PDs, is please do not 3 close reads everything. When you're trying to, look at narratives, look at frames, and you're trying to look at all of these things, and you put an article in front of kid, and then the next day you put an article in front of them, and then the next day, you do not want them to 3 close reads everything. You want them to 3 close reads the most important pieces, because if they 3 close reads everything, probably by November, you may have your tires slashed. Just a word to the wise. It does not go well. It's really about 1 3/4 reads, but it does take a good amount of modeling. It does take some time, but it really is meant to be the most meaty articles and when you want them to get the most out of things. We have a different approach for our graphic biographies. That is a 3 close reads that is specific for graphic biographies. But you can use this with video, you can use this with everything. One of our teachers just modified this to be 3, 2, 1, like on one piece of paper. He has them write it out on a Post-it. 3 questions you have, 2 thoughts that you have, 2 wondering, 3 questions, 2 things that were really interesting to you, and 1 thing that you already knew. That's how he has them do it. Or he comes up with different 3, 2, 1s if he wants an abbreviated version. I think that that's really fun and exciting. So these are just different modifications that you can do as you're going through your course. And then
before you move on, can I ask a quick question? Could you go
Absolutely.
back to the prior slide? I was wondering if that was a typo. In the upper left-hand corner where it says the second reading is skimming. Is that?
Oh, it should be first. Pardon me.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
You're
checking.
right. It is.
Sorry.
Good job. Note taken. Between that and my font. Okay. So our approach to writing is to clearly write a lot. We have long essay questions, document-based questions. We have artificial intelligence essay scoring to help with formative essay scoring. Really, the idea here is to have your kids write to think through the end of a pencil. The idea is not to have you grade more. And I think that that's the big shift that we'll talk about a lot, is that students really, if they write these different things, they're like, what's my score? What's my score? What's my score? When we talk about our writing rubrics or anything like that, we ask teachers a lot to parse apart the rubrics, to only look at one strand and be very clear with the students. I'm only grading you on the claim and focus strand. So yes, you're writing a full piece, but this is what we're really working on. Or I'm only grading you on the analysis and evidence strand. So I like to do a lot of exit ticket work. So if I'm thinking about my essay on, say, an assessment, I'm going to say, okay, going back to those frames, we're going to look at production and distribution across, how did production and distribution allow for nationalism in both Japan and Germany to grow, right? Let's have this conversation. Let's have this essay, or choose one of those areas, right? So my kids write that, and I'm going to look for your claim, or I'm going to look for how you use evidence, and I'll put the strand of the rubric right there. Yes, they're writing this full essay. That's what I'm grading them on. It's just a good way for them to practice their skills, to think through things, and for me to highlight their areas of what they need to work on. And then I can still give them formative feedback, but we can move forward. And then I can have them at a later time bring that essay out, and then, hey, we're going to use that essay that you had as a jumping off point for a discussion later on, and say, okay, you used German nationalism for this. Let's talk about German nationalism in terms, or Japanese nationalism in terms of now World War I. Let's move forward and kind of now bring that essay out and talk about it then. So it's not going away just because I didn't give them feedback then. It's now coming back out. And now they see that it's still meaningful to them. So it's a constant iteration there. The other piece is when we talk about assessment, and that's where I was kind of bridging those two slides together, we don't give multiple choice assessments. We don't make them. We give some practice quizzes, some practice questions, but the reason we don't make quote unquote multiple choice assessments is because for us, we cannot know the students in your classroom. We can't be responsive to them. We don't know how you teach. And quite frankly, we have too much stuff on our website to know exactly what you're teaching. And we don't want to be prescriptive with that. So we give so much stuff on our website that you could probably teach 2.5, 3 years of content. And we do that on purpose, because if there's a student there that didn't get something and you gave them the article the first time, then maybe you have to give them a video the second time. And then maybe you have to give them an activity. Or conversely, maybe there's a student that's so far advanced, they can go on their own to the other materials section and they're moving through things. So we don't like to make multiple choice assessments. We give essays, we give all of the tools that you would need to make your own, but we choose not to. We give rubrics, and we're piloting now rubrics for each of the different skills for you to have, so that you would have a rubric for the different skills. Teachers are piloting those right now and giving us feedback. But for multiple choice assessments, we just stay away from those, and we would prefer you guys to make those on your own, simply because you know your students best. And then ongoing next steps. So you can always join our teacher community. In our teacher community, there's plenty of questions that you can have answered there. They love to have answer anything possible for you. And then, like I said, there's plenty of other PD that we offer that you can go to, and you can join one of our onboarding sessions, which will help you walk through like planning a whole unit from start to finish, really get you on the wagon there. I want to go through and just show you how to get into our community. And I'm going to go back to the website just quickly. And so I hope that you can see this, the website. If you can, give me a thumbs up. It should say World History Project. Perfect. Thank you. So in the website, if this is like the page that you're logged in, you'll have your courses here. This is great. If you go here to this community button, this is kind of the public face of the website. And here is where you can get your planning resources and find Nevada and all of your goodies, professional development stuff, standards alignment, anything you need. Here's where you can get all of your PD sessions and register for anything you want. And then I like the events tab because my life runs by a calendar. So here's the calendar side of things. But here is the forums. This is what we call our teacher community. This is where you get all of the good things. Teachers will answer questions immediately. So if you say new to OER project and you've got a question, you can put it right in here. You can pop in a new question, start a discussion, ask it right there, and somebody will answer it. Or you can look down here and say, oh, what are people saying? Here they are, and click right in on there, and people just follow along and see what people are saying. Oh, here's quizzes and exams. I'm wondering about quizzes. I need a quiz. Here's a woman that copied and pasted her whole multiple choice test. Right in on there. And you could definitely just take that for yourself. So people are very, very willing to share anything that you want. The other thing that I wanted to show you which is my absolute favorite thing in the whole world, because I get very overwhelmed sometimes by the website. So I wanted to share just very quickly. The course home button is here. And let's just, imperialism, we'll go to the unit page. And you see all of these wonderful tiles. And you're like, where do I start with all of these tiles? I don't know what goes with what. How do I know? I always click on this wonderful, lovely view lesson button. And that is my lesson plan. The view lesson button is my savior. It tells me exactly, it gives me my introduction, tells me the little bit of background. And then if I scroll down, it gives me what goes together. Oh, this article and this activity go together. And here's how I use them. And this is what I do. And then I go down a little bit more. Oh, there's the summary of the frames video. And here's some sample questions I could ask my kids. And some sample answers. And oh, these 3 geography lessons go together. So this breaks up all those different tiles that just are there back to back to back to back to back. This helps break that up. So I know my time is up, but I wanted to give you that little bit of like just a tip or trick there.
I did want to remind you that everyone is required to complete the attendance form for every session. I have provided the link in the chat and I can post it again. And also an evaluation of the session, if you could fill that out as well. And one more time with the surveys. And if anyone has any questions for Angelina.
Thank you all for coming. This was wonderful. And yes, help at OER project. Ask away. We're happy to help.
All right, so thank you. I'm going to stop recording and